All right. Hey, everyone. It's Winter here. I'm the host of Deepfeed Podcast, which is a video podcast all about the art of brand building on social media. And this evening, I'm joined by the co-founders of the podcast, Asher Torres.
Hey.
And Easton Carter Engel.
Hey.
And this is our first ever Deepfeed After Dark. So Deepfeed After Dark is a new series we're trying out where it's a little bit less formal, and we will talk behind the scenes. We're going to bring on special guests in future episodes, talk trends, and really anything that feels relevant in the moment. For this episode, though, we're going to discuss our experience so far of launching a video podcast, everything we've learned so far, challenges, wins, and also what to know if you guys are interested in launching your own video podcast in the future. So, okay, to recap, we have published 13 episodes so far, which feels crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
Lucky 13.
Lucky 13.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And our first episode went live on May 14th.
Okay.
So I think for me, just some overall general reflections is I knew launching a video podcast was going to be really hard. I knew that going in, and I think all three of us knew that.
Yeah, I didn't know the type of hard it was going to be. I was like, it's going to be hard, but I did not know the extent of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be tough, and I think that because of our background in editorial and all the years we've worked together, I was like, there's nothing going to be harder than running a magazine and the amount of shoots, the content, just working with so many different creatives. No, this is some stuff. That's what I have to say.
I mean, especially because we're bootstrapping it all too. It's just the three of us. We don't have a full team behind us, which is often how these podcasts start anyway. I think for me, I knew it was going to be challenging because anytime you're making media, it's challenging. But I just wasn't sure, okay, what are the gotchas going to be? What are the things that are going to make me want to tear my hair out? And it was not what I expected.
Yeah.
The editing was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I definitely, so knew it was going to be hard, but it is much harder than I initially thought. And I think the editing is, maybe that's surprising to some people, but I think the editing is definitely the hardest part because it's so robust. And so the three of us share tasks. So we came together as we decided to go all in as equal partners and just really assess what it requires to put out a video podcast, and specifically a YouTube first podcast, I would say. And we sat down and just mapped out a process and split up tasks. So if you guys are curious about how we've split things up, so I'm the host. I obviously prepare for the interviews, so I do research on the guests, prepare for the interview, also decide do the guest outreach and pitch and invite people on the show. I do the social clips and the what we call packaging for YouTube. So that means the thumbnail design and the title, the caption, everything like that. So that's where I sit in the pod. And then Easton.
Yeah, so I do all the filming for it. So setting up we do a 3-camera shoot, setting up the lighting, all of the that sort of tech stuff. So that's on the production side. And then in post, I'm editing the full-length YouTube and then color grading it. And I work alongside Asher. We kind of, as we're doing, well, I'll let you speak about the audio stuff. And then, it's a lot. Yeah.
Yes, I support Easton on whatever he needs tech, but I mean, he's brilliant. And of any kind of light, my background is lighting, so I work with him to just make sure everything is cohesive and we're happy. We're trying to not make our post-production and the other side of this more than, so we try to get everything right here, and then what we have to do we do in editing. And then I this was a big challenge for me, running the sound at Deepfeed and kind of learning all these things. And I'm still very much very still learning this process and and also growing with everybody here. And then I do the trailer alongside with Winter before the face to cam. Would also do the photography and do editing around that. Any kind of promo stuff Winter needs, I'm there for it. 'cause my
Yeah.
background is photography.
Yeah, and I think, well, just to kind of go off what you just said, so when you have, and that was also something we mapped from the beginning, though. You know, when you have an interview go out, you guys will probably notice in most podcast interviews, there is that like intro. There's a trailer that kind of teases some key points that'll come up in the episode, maybe gives a little bio of the guest. And so the way we have it set up right now, and I do think, let's talk about this later, but I do think we might change this a little bit. But we have, the intro is in 2 parts. We have the intro trailer, which is clips from the full-length episode. And then what Asher said, face to cam, that's when you might recognize me when I go, today on deepfeed, I chat with so-and-so as the guest. And I give kind of an intro bio, because not everyone we bring on the podcast is like necessarily a celebrity, you know, or has like that kind of massive of a following. So it is important for us to, we all agreed, right? Like, give a little introduction to the guest. That way, when it goes into the interview, we can just go straight into an interview, and we don't have to rely on the guest giving like a full personal background of themselves.
Yeah.
So everyone does it differently, and I think every podcast finds their own style, and we separate it right now. But I do think it might be interesting to kind of combine it for season 2 a little bit.
Oh, interesting. Like how so?
Yeah, this is the first time we're talking about this right
Yeah.
now.
Well, I mean, now I'm curious. I'm like,
I
all
wanted
right,
to pitch you on this idea, so
okay.
this is the time.
a live pitch.
A live pitch.
Can I hijack it for 1 second? I just want to give a shout out to my buddy Jax. Thank you so much jumping on to make me feel
Hi,
so
Jax.
much.
Hey, Jack, thank you.
Feel supported around sound, because I was really nervous. It wasn't gonna work. So
First live
I
stream.
love
Yeah,
you.
first.
Thank
This
you
is our
so
first.
much, Jax.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Jax.
we appreciate it. I mean, you know, we knew, again, it's like starting the podcast. It's always nerve-wracking that first, and then you get into it, and now
Yeah.
it's like, all right, you know.
Yeah, this is our first YouTube live stream ever, so I think
Yeah.
But yeah, for the pitch. So right now we separated that intro trailer and then the face to cam, as we call it, where the bio part. And I've been kind of noticing on other podcasts we admire, whether it's like Diary of a CEO or how Jay Klaus with Creator Science, like if you can combine kind of flashbacks like from the episode and clips, to me saying like, if it was a clip from the episode, then I go like, that was so-and-so. They do XYZ, and then it like pops a clip from the interview relevant to what they do, and kind of have a little more like dynamism.
So
in
it's like
the
combining it with using the like interview organically.
Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like clips
Yeah.
and face to cam
Yeah.
in one.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice too, because it's like it allows the thread of the story to flow instead of it just being like this, and then this.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
like
Well,
that.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is I found like when in the process of, you know, watching this like so many times over and over again, and really just trying to find those key like clips that I think would be captivating or interesting, like, oh, I want to know more, right? But I always felt like I kind of needed Winter's face to cam to really bring it home, to put it together, because you bring that energy. And then we started having a conversation, because I think like realistically I was feeling a little stressed out, or like something was missing. I know I'm not like a classically trained editor by any means, and this is all again new for
Well,
all
I mean,
of
we're
us.
all
Yeah.
learning though, and
Yeah,
we're
totally.
doing a damn fine job.
I don't
if
think
may
too
say
bad,
so
too bad.
myself.
Yeah, and I think something for me too that's been exciting about the pod is like just like throwing ourselves in to learn new things, because we each have like different areas of expertise. Asher and I run marketing agency together, but at Posture Media, our agency, like I never really had a heavy hand in editing. And now like it's been cool from the pod, because I do the social clips. I do think it's made me a much stronger editor. And that has impacted the work at Posture Media, because I've been able to jump on and like do some tasks, or I have a much better understanding, even when I'm managing an editor, of like what that experience is like. And so, yeah, that's been like a big, even though we said editing is the biggest challenge, it's also been like very rewarding in
Yeah,
that way.
totally.
Yeah,
Of, like
yeah.
career growth and like skill set building.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely noticed like your edits on social media are very like I've seen like seeing the progression is kind of wild too.
Yeah.
Like I've definitely noticed that. And like you're saying too, like so none of us really had that editing background per se. So we like, you know, I have a cinematography background. I work on film sets, but I would edit here and there, but I knew it was going to be a challenge getting into editing, and I feel like I've learned a lot too. And even like doing our sketch for like which was so much fun. Learned a lot too for editing too as we were editing it, it's like going through. So
what Easton's referencing, we did a little promo for going live, and look at our Instagram and our TikTok. It's pretty good.
I liked it.
It was fun. Good. We did it in like 2 hours and maybe 3 hours.
No, I would say for 4.
Yeah.
We filmed and edited and got it out like within a matter of hours.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, that was such a fun experience.
I mean, the best part was going to get ice cream. And
excuse
to do that.
Yeah, I mean.
But I think from episode 1 to 13, which was just Chantel Martin was our 13th, it's been like, I do think we've learned pretty quickly and rapidly too. Like, as the host, there's also, I feel, a lot of pressure because we've talked about this before. Like, I see myself, like, my job is to ask the guest all the questions that I think I would want to know as the viewer, and ultimately to make that interview as valuable as possible. And so when I'm crafting questions and researching and I'm watching other interviews that the guest has done, trying to make sure like our interview is different and I'm asking different kinds of questions, that's been also like, I think up there with editing is like, how do I craft the conversation? How can I pick questions? Like, that also surprise the guest a little, or like just help. And one thing I've done too, I used to send the guest questions in advance, but I stopped doing that. I don't do that anymore. And that actually has helped because it has felt just like the guest will get a little more surprised, or it'll feel like they have to answer in the moment. That's been a good thing. I don't recommend ever sending the guest questions in advance. And that Debbie Millman actually.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, because like editing the interview right now, she did talk about that.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Debbie.
And she's she's a great interviewer. So like,
it's really good. And also I remember Chantel was like, I don't even read them anyway. And you're like,
which is probably what a lot of guests do. I mean,
Yeah, I was like racing to get all the questions ready and packaged to send to the guests like at least 24 hours before, and then they're probably not really reading them. So, but like just getting comfortable on camera, getting comfortable with hearing my voice, seeing myself, like that's been a crazy journey too. And like,
that's really funny you're bringing this up because like, of course we have a monitor right here that you all can't see, but I can see myself and I'm like, stop looking at it.
Well, also it's really interesting too, like seeing your like progression, even for like little notes, like as I would be editing the full YouTube, there'd be things where I would be like, all right, Winter, actually, like you have to do, I'm trying to think of a good example, but I can't. But we've kind of had conversations about like certain things that you had to kind of like change or do differently for like when we're in the edit and when we're going through and things that were working and things that didn't. And I feel like it's just gotten like more streamlined. So I don't know.
Yeah, that was something I had to wrap my head around as well, is like kind of obviously crafting questions, thinking about how it's going to clip for social, because like we have to get those like quotable moments throughout to clip for social. So that's also part of having, I think, a YouTube video, any kind of YouTube video, is you have to think about those moments that can be clipped for social to potentially drive traffic and subscribers. So there's a lot that goes into a video podcast, like not only the process of production, but like thinking about like the marketing of it and like basically leveraging the pre-production process and like how it's going to go out in the world. Like just a lot of facets to think about.
There's a lot of facets and so many little details. It's actually kind of wild, but it's necessary, right, to be successful at what you're doing. But there's a lot of details for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I knew we'd have to clip it, but there's an art to getting those like good answers, which come from good questions. It's just like the better the question, the better the answer is going to be. So that's been something that I do think, if you watch like our first interview where I interviewed Jack Appleby to Chantel, I do think my questions have gotten stronger. I'm trying to get more confident in how I
The
ask
energy
questions.
too,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like it's more like the back and forth, which I think is like really good.
Well, also watching your confidence is like it's so vast at this point. It's like
Yeah, I remember
like,
with Jack, the first episode, I was shaking. And I don't think you can
And
see
we had
it.
the cards too, right?
Yeah, and I
That-
had little prompt cards, but
Yeah.
That's right.
I was like, I could feel myself. I was like,
Yeah.
my teeth were like clattering, and now that doesn't happen.
That's so wild because you have a background in public speaking. You've spoken on the biggest platforms in the world. You've been in massive like spaces. Like that's so wild.
Yeah, but even the guests who a lot of the people I've interviewed, like, they also they do public speaking. Like I notice they get nervous too. And there's something about, so we have a 3-camera setup, and there's something about being in a studio with the lights, with the 3 cameras, with these mics, with like you guys
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah, because it's so quiet. Because like when
Yeah.
you're on a stage, you have this like kind of adrenaline,
Yeah.
and you can kind of like perform because you have this whole audience, and it's like one and done. It's like
Yeah.
a play. Like you don't get to say, "Oh, I need a take 2." But for this, it's like it does kind of feel a little. It kind of trips me up too sometimes. Like when we're filming the dad episode. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It definitely, there's something scary about it. So I'm getting, 13 in, like I'm much more used to it, but it definitely took acclimating. And I think that will be for anyone who starts. It's like once the cameras are on, like, and then you're with a guest and you have to perform. Yeah. And also as the host, like something that's hard for me is like I'm asking a question, but I'm also thinking ahead of like the next question or where I need the conversation to go.
Yeah.
So like the brain has to kind of split in two a little bit, and you have to be really in it and intentional and there, but you have to be like, okay, but where do I need this to go?
Yeah.
So there's a lot like in the moment of that, like that
I could never.
relationship.
yeah.
I could never. I sit
yeah.
there and I watch you, and obviously
Yeah.
I'm editing and watching these over and over again, and I'm just like, that's a skill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
My brain is like, here now,
Yeah.
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think when we're just on the topic of like challenges, as we are, the packaging of the episode, as I mentioned before, is really important. And I think when we started, I don't think we necessarily had. I did my research. I understood the thumbnail and the title were really important, but like, I don't think I had the same education of like how important or like doing keyword research or like how to research topics and stuff. And so we just signed up for Jay Klaus's podcast, I don't know, seminar course,
course.
and we haven't finished it yet.
Almost.
But one thing we have learned from Jay Klaus has his own podcast, and he has a company called Creator Science with a membership program. Definitely check him out. He's been a huge inspiration for us. But one thing he has said was like, he starts his podcast with the packaging, right? And so does Colin and Samir and other leaders in the space. But like, they think about the topic first, and then they also craft the thumbnail and then potentially book a guest who fits into that conversation. And that's not how starting out, like we thought of who we wanted to chat with, and then we're like, well, what should we talk about? And then like, how do we package it? So really the important thing with podcasting we're learning is you actually have to start with like, okay, what do we want the takeaway to be?
Yeah.
What do we want the thumbnail to look like? And then you book the guest, then you craft the questions.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I don't know if I've thought about this before or not, or just thought about this moment, but that's kind of how we did the magazine. It was like, what's trending, who's hot, who do we have access to, who do we want to like, work with and, create this. So I think I think naturally you approached the podcast the way that you ran Posture Magazine.
It's true. Yeah, like what do we want to talk about, and then who is the perfect person to talk about that thing.
Yeah.
So that is something I think we will be implementing in season 2.
It's like reverse engineering. I think that's like what I didn't really think about like before like starting this podcast, like how you do have to kind of like, it's the Merlin approach. You have to like figure out where you want to end, and then your path is backwards to get to there.
Exactly.
Where it's like you were saying, like before, we were like, well, what do we want to talk about? What guests do we have access to? Like, and then we kind of make the topic. So it just gives such a more focused approach. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It's just not something I necessarily would have immediately thought of doing. So that's been kind of
Yeah.
an interesting.
Yeah, it's something I just talked about. We didn't talk about earlier, but like, shall we talk about the set and how we went from no table in the beginning to this space to why we have books down to we own this font, like all this stuff. And
Yeah, I think when we crafted the look and feel for our original set, we had a huge challenge because our studio was in Greenpoint. It was in a co-working space. It was a tiny,
The smallest studio ever. It was like an 8x8.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
And we had 3 cameras in there. Can
Yeah.
you believe that? That's like insane.
Yeah, it was crazy. So our first 3 episodes.
in
they're-
a whole. Sorry, I keep banging into everything. But a whole like window. I mean, not
Yeah.
window. The whole wall was
Yeah.
windows. That's a challenge in itself. That was so
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. Well,
the natural
That
light
was
is tough because the light will change throughout the interview, and so
Yeah.
we had to block off all the light. But it's hard to do that perfectly, and also as a co-working space, you guys probably know there's like those, it's usually wraparound windows, and so we had to cover that as well. So we had this wall built, which is this black like wood panel situation, but we had a lot more, and so we just like covered this tiny little cube studio. And we ended up getting in a lot of trouble because the co-working space, the management
Not
company,
happy.
there's a lot of rules. So we got yelled at so much, but we had
yeah.
invested money. We had a set designer, Mo Pepin.
Amazing.
Who's
We've
amazing.
worked with them or her for a very long time.
Yeah, and she custom built all this for us. We,
And brought it down from her studio in Boston. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you, Mo. And ultimately realized that we really needed to move. I think that, that was why. It was like, well, first of all, parking sucks in Greenpoint.
yeah, loading in the gear, all the gear fitting in that small room. Like,
yeah.
I think that's one thing too. Like with like starting out with podcasters, like if you're starting out as a podcaster, I think just like you don't need like the biggest space, you don't need the best stuff, but you just need like enough space to do it. Like, because it gets very stressful. Because if we're learning, like as we were learning, it was so stressful to have 3 cameras in literally it was an 8x8 basically,
Yeah.
8x10, if that. Like,
I'm not sure what it was. It was quite small.
It was so hard.
So hard,
And
yeah.
once we moved into this space, there was like that little bit of relief from like, okay, now I have a little bit of room.
Yeah, I mean, for us, this is a big upgrade because we had all these walls. There's no windows in here, so we don't have to worry about light.
Full control.
And, we mood boarded like what the set should be, and that was a whole process too because that's so important. Like the vibe, really.
I
is,
like that pipe though.
the pipe in the old studio.
I mean, but it was such a different look.
yeah.
Like dark versus light.
It was more
and I
industrial.
think we
It
lit
was-
it up behind it too with some gel lights.
We
whatever.
actually we only could fit literally one light. I wanted to try to do hair lights, but because the subject was so close to the wall, it was
Yeah.
like there was no way. So we actually just had the
I
gem
remember.
ball,
Yeah,
and we
the
just
gem
had it
ball.
lower though because all the shots were tighter. So the gem ball was actually a lot lower.
Yeah.
So we had like a little. Well, the look was definitely different.
Yeah, with the big pipe. So like this all in one wall and then a big pipe. If you go back to any of the first 3 episodes, you can see that we had like lights, like kind of like neon, like
Oh,
gel
yeah, we
lights.
had the
the
neon
gel
light
lights,
backlights.
LED lights, yeah.
And so very different look and feel than what we have now. And ultimately went with this, which is we kept this center panel with our logo.
Yeah, and we still have the other pieces there in the hallway underneath stairs that our landlord has allowed us to like stash over there because I refuse to let them up.
Yeah. And then after a lot of concepting, just decided shelving and like white walls were the best move because we can have art prints, we could have small objects, we could have lights and like different things, and so it gives us a lot of flexibility and was also like an affordable option as well.
Yeah.
I think we ordered these on Amazon. These
Yeah,
shelves.
off Amazon. Yeah, we just did all the math and figured it out, and had somebody that is a woodworker and does install come in and help do all that because I was afraid to puncture through these walls, not knowing what's on the other side of them. Now I'm not afraid of it, but I did the painting
Yeah.
and such.
And originally in the first 3 episodes there were 2 armchairs and I had like little talking cards. And so it was it was a little more casual, I would say, with when you're in an armchair, it feels a little different. And it was a really hard decision, but we decided to go with a table and chairs. So that's also something that like it really does change an experience of a podcast, like the whole set with the lighting, the set design, like what do you know, and I have ultimately like I really love our set because I think it's
Same.
cheery
Yeah.
and bright.
It's clean too,
And-
which I like. Sleek.
Yeah, it's sleek. And I think because we are more of a professional podcast, like about social media, personal branding, like money, to be honest, that I think the table, it allows me to have an iPad. It just kind of sets like a little bit more of a professional tone. But I think, you know, we could change it again in the future. Who cares?
never
I don't know.
I think like one of the biggest takeaways too to think about like when you're designing like your podcast set is like how everything's so intentional. Like you really do. It's okay like maybe in the beginning if you're but like mood boarding it, like really being, because like this table we actually talked about it a lot because we were gonna go with glass, and then I was like, well, reflections.
Yeah.
But then we wanted white, and it's actually perfect because it kind of acts as a natural bounce card.
Yep.
Because it's funny,
Yeah.
whenever we have it covered with the little cover, it's like dark, and then we take it off and you can see it. So it's like every piece is very intentional.
And Winter loves to wear hats, so that was key for Easton and I to like
Yeah.
make sure that we're filling in any shadows and such.
Yeah, true. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
So what has been your favorite part of doing this together so
Well,
far?
can I just hijack real quick for a second? I just want to say too, talk about intentional. A lot of these books or magazines are friends of Winter's. All the years we've been in editorial, and it means a lot to us. And it's cool because we can put our guests' books up here too.
It's true.
Yeah.
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 So yes, what have been some of your favorite moments, learnings, anything so far?
I think just the challenge of it all has been really exciting and interesting. I think creating with you two has been like really special. I think we've had some like long nights, some like a lot of laughs, some tears maybe. Yeah, you know, like
Hugs.
it's hugs. Yeah, lots of hugs. Like, yeah, that's been kind of really exciting just to be like creating something. And I mean, like once we hit like 1,000 subscribers, I was like, wow, like people are watching this. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We hit 1,000 subs like on my birthday.
Yeah, happy
December
birthday to
4th.
you, so.
Thank you. And that was amazing. That was a good.
Yeah.
Good, it was a good day. Taking back Sunday, like all, and then
I missed that. I was
Yeah,
bummed I
you
missed
were
it.
working,
Yeah, I was
I think,
working.
yeah.
Yeah. I would have been there.
What was I gonna say to you? Well, I lost my train of thought. Never mind. I'll come back.
I think
It's
my
typical.
favorite part. Well, there's so many. I think there's just so many, but I think yeah, like, the reason for launching the podcast in the first place is because, you know, at Posture, like I work alone a lot, and I'm just doing client work, and I'm helping build other brands, making content for brands, and like managing freelancers, and that's my whole life. And I was really missing a creative project, you know, that we were doing, and like that was just for our career and like our professional development, like outside of just like working for other brands. And so being like really assessing like of all creative projects that it could be, knowing that video podcasts specifically are on the like they have risen. We see, as you know, like Spotify is transforming their platform to really support video podcasts. Everyone's jumping on video podcasts.
Yeah.
And especially YouTube, like YouTube is becoming like the top platform, I think, for creators because the rev share is so amazing too. That kind of assessing of all the things it could be, doing a video podcast felt like the best move for us at the time.
Yeah.
And I think too, like, yeah, like we talked and like wanting a collaborator, and then you immediately were like top choice for
Yeah,
us.
straight up first person, and
Because we've known you for a while, but like we haven't worked together at all, like in this capacity. And
but in other ways, but not this.
Yeah.
and it's been really rewarding for me just to have like a collaborator, I think, like not just managing and telling people what to do and calling shots, but to actually do a creative project collaboratively with you guys and be able to just like bounce ideas off each other as peers and make shit happen together. And like you said, like be up late, we're learning, we're making mistakes, but like we've gotten through this with like, I don't think we've had a big fight.
No,
I don't
No,
think
actually,
we've
No,
had-
honestly.
No.
No, it's been
we've had frustrations, but
Yes.
there's been
Yeah.
no like fighting or
Yeah.
like serious upset. Like we've
or like I'm done. Not even.
because we're all in this together. Like we all
Yeah.
we all want this, and we know that it's like it's gonna be rocky. It always is.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we're all creators. We've all like like every time you start out with any project, whether it's creative, a business, or both, like we all know it's gonna be rocky.
Yeah.
Like, but
But also, I think that all of us know what high pressure feels like because we've all worked in this industry, and we just have the vibe. We just vibe really well together,
Yeah.
like really seamlessly.
yeah, well, that's definitely something like working on film sets. You know, I got my start in camera department, and then now I'm a cinematographer. But like there's a certain like kind of energy you have to create on set, and especially when you're the DP, because you're in charge of 2 departments, and you know you have to be like calm and confident. And so in like you're saying, in like being in high pressure situations happens a lot on set, because you have like all these things happening. Sometimes stuff
Yes.
is like, you know, the card gets corrupted, and you have to be like very calm while you're like freaking out. So I feel like we're all really good at like staying calm, and I think that is like, I think that's also probably why we haven't gotten any crazy fights.
Yeah.
We're like know when to take a break, when to cool down.
Yeah.
That's
Also,
right.
we've taken the time to really flesh out like processes.
Yeah.
Even though that needs constant optimization and we have to make
Yeah.
changes, I think we didn't just jump in sloppily. Like we from the beginning all agreed on who would do what, and like, you know, expectations for everybody. And I think that really helped, and I think that's important in collaborations to have that. Like we have a written agreement, we have, you
Yeah,
know,
we
so we
do.
went in, I think we did it right, like
Yeah,
really
true.
transparent, honest, on the same page, and I think that has made the collaboration like really strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the contract definitely. It's not something, because that's the thing. It's not something I wouldn't initially think about, but I'm like, that makes so much sense. Because
Yeah.
it's like, if we're getting paid to do a job, we would have a contract. So like, you know, why
Yeah.
not have it for
Yeah.
that? So I think that's
It just makes it gives everyone comfort, and we all like read
Confidence, yeah.
our
Or what our roles are.
What our roles are, and we
what's-
agree to that,
Yeah,
and
and
if-
it's a reminder
yeah.
too. And I think too is that running a podcast is incredibly expensive. This is like essentially at this level, it's, and you know, and this having this contract with each other and what we signed up for and what, like, who's responsible for what, it helps. And like I can't even express to you like the amount of equipment that Easton runs and owns and brought to this is wild. I mean, Easton also has his own rental, small rentals. I wouldn't call it a studio almost, like, because you do it out of here too, but has another
Yeah.
business of renting his equipment. And yeah, it's just a lot. And so I don't even
Yeah,
know. where
and
this
time
is.
too, like
Yeah.
investment,
Yeah.
like money and,
Oh,
and
yeah.
time. And I think one thing to think about too is like when people are starting out, like wanting to do a podcast, like if you don't have a lot of money, then you're gonna just have to spend more time, and like just knowing that, like
Yeah.
you know, we're kind of spending money and time, and like I feel like that's kind of what happens. But you know, like
Well, at this level, yeah.
yeah, but and I think also because we're like so high, like we want that highest value possible. So I think that also is, but I do think like for people starting out, like definitely like you're just gonna have to spend more time. That's just what it's gonna be. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't have all the money in the world, all the fancy cameras, all the like the cool toys that we have.
Oh yeah.
too.
Speaking of toys, I want to just talk about all of this.
Oh, yeah.
The sound. You know, like we first started off with the smaller share mics here, and we had to graduate into these for a lot of reasons. They are like, I mean, people talk about this stuff. I'm again not an expert in this, still very much learning, but there is a huge difference between this mic and this mic in our space. And because we're in Brooklyn, we're in Bushwick, it gets loud outside. We're actually at street level, but because of how this works with Easton having gear and gears constantly coming in and out of here, Winter and I, all of it, and how we wanted this to look. So we chose this space, but with that came, you know, some sound challenges. I'm sure you can hear the nonsense right now because it's rush hour. It's real. It happens. But yeah, so yeah, this stuff is expensive. This is like the cheaper route. It unfortunately didn't work for us. We moved into this, then we had to, you know, well, before we even got into this, we got into the Rode caster mic. You'll see if you check out our Instagram, we have a whole little funny skit about graduating from GarageBand to this, and that like really helped. And this stuff is it's expensive. It's not cheap. And then, you know, and you want to, like Easton says, you want to like continue with the toys and just upgrading. But yeah, but I think depending on your space, like this is not a bad route to go. You can even get these things used on Guitar Center. I think that's where, Guitar Center, where I got these. And then you can find still not cheap, but inexpensive stuff to start. But this is a great start. And obviously this is like a huge difference in level.
Yeah, I would say getting sound down. Like sound is probably I would say maybe the most
sound
important.
Is so huge.
Than video, like quality. It needs to sound really good.
Get better mics. Sorry to interrupt you, but get better mics before you get better cameras.
Yeah,
that would be what I would say.
Yeah, I think that. Definitely, and that we're still learning, and I still think our sound can sound better, and we'll get there over time for sure.
Yeah, sound has been a huge challenge for us. Like. We were plugging directly into the laptop using GarageBand.
That was awful.
Which was awful. Do not do that. Invest in a mixer. Like this is the Rodecaster Pro 2.
And you can get a smaller version. It's not as expensive. This is a 4-channel, and there's a reason why, because we knew that we were going to do this at some point, or we were going to have multiple guests. And obviously there's bigger mixers. This thing is does a lot. It's stuff that I will never even touch that's going on in this thing, and we can also live stream. It's amazing. So yeah, what is it? The Rodecaster? Yeah. Pro
Rodecaster
2.
Pro.
Yeah, that's
And also, an option too for like people starting out who they know they need certain gear. Like renting gear is totally a thing. I think that's also like definitely in my like career, as I would like go through and be interested in cameras before I would buy things, I would actually like rent stuff and use it, because sometimes just like getting your hands on it. Now there's pros and cons obviously to both. Like when you have your gear, like you have full control of it, you can keep it like in perfect condition and you know exactly how to use it.
Yeah, this one has a lot of presets
exactly
already.
Yeah, but definitely like I think like, or even like there's podcast studios, and that's a whole other thing.
And
that's like,
but you don't get the customization
and
like this
exactly
one.
It's like the pros and cons. But even if it's like you're not sure if you want to get into podcasting and you want like to like do a little taste.
I was gonna say that, like I think to start, it might be worthwhile renting an affordable podcast studio in your city and then doing an hour or two, and you have to invest. It costs money. Usually they're like $250 an hour. Like it's not cheap. But they come with the gear. They come with like sound engineers.
You can even get them to edit some of it too.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
So I would say like as a starting point, as like a test, like really focus on the quality of the interview, the packaging for YouTube, like the great guest, great interview, and then start in a podcast studio, and then, build your following and monetize, and then, invest in a space if you want, depending on capacity. But I think starting small and smart and really focusing on the quality of the interview.
Yeah.
We had, we did have a budget. We knew what we wanted. We wanted to come out strong. I wanted a set that's custom. I wanted all the things, but like that isn't possible for everybody because like Asher, you were saying, like it is expensive. Like the mics, the mixer, a set design. I mean, when you're buying a table,
down
chairs,
to like the wires, everything too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because we only own 2 of these, and we actually own a bunch of these. Any feedback that you're hearing right now is from this mic, no matter like what I can do. But it's it's still a good mic. It's just that I needed to set it up against these, so you're definitely going to hear me sound a little different. Something I can do about it. You can even hear my shirt, my jacket.
But if you guys have any questions on starting a pod, you can drop a comment here or DM us on Instagram, shoot us an email at hello@deepfeedpodcast.com, and we're happy to answer any of those questions too, because it is a lot and it can be very overwhelming. So.
Yeah, but I think like you saying like start small and smart is really truly the way. And also when you start this podcast journey, flexibility is one of the most important things too. Like being aware, like you may have your plan and then your plan was going to completely like fall apart and you're going to have to pivot anyway, and like, so the flexibility it may seem stressful to be like, oh, I'm going down this road and now I have to completely change it, but it actually that's the way you have to go. So like flexibility is so important in this process. Like, we had a very clear plan in terms of like, even like I remember like us going through like the tech stuff and how we wanted to do the hard drives, and I had like all these, I wanted to model it like as like I wanted to be like a proper post supervisor, you know. And then we learned so much about the editing process. We were doing it one way where, you know, I was in the beginning doing the social media clips and you were giving me like the bits to clip from, and then we were able to realize pretty early on that wasn't working. And so that's kind of where the flexibility where and like you have to be able to pivot. And I'm so glad that we were like, okay, we did like it was like I think the first 2 interviews, and then it was like, well, this process isn't working. And it's all about getting the process. It's like you have your roadmap, and then you have to keep changing it. It's a science experiment. You're like constantly testing things, and so
definitely.
Yeah, I think allowing yourself some grace too, and like Easton was saying that you might have the roadmap and it doesn't work out. If you like decide you want to publish like every week, it might not happen because of technical stuff or this or that or life. And just we know they say like the more you publish, of course, like the faster you're gonna grow. But sometimes you got to work through some kinks, and that's what we spent this year doing. And next season is going to be a little different, and hopefully we can continue like rolling out even more and more and more faster.
Yeah, we were ambitious and wanting once a week, and we haven't been able to hit that. And the reason we also didn't come out the gate being like, we're going to publish every Tuesday at 3 p.m. was because I knew that might not happen. Like, you know, Asher and I run an agency. Easton's a busy cinematographer. Like, we also have to focus on client work and like priorities too. There's capacity challenges, and just that's life. So we did give ourselves some grace of like, we know we're bootstrapping, we're splitting up the work. We may not hit every target, and like that's okay. You may not be like that. You may want to start and be like, you're going to hit and be consistent, and that if you can do that, that is amazing. But like I think we focus on quality. Like, there's been some episodes that we didn't feel were ready. Yeah. And we were like, you know, fuck it, we're not publishing. Or like, we need to hire, there was one episode we had to hire an audio engineer to like fix the audio. Yeah. We were so close to publishing, and then we were like, no.
Yeah. It was like the night before, and then we were like, again, it's like we're quality over quantity. I feel like that's like our motto, and it's like we're always kind of questioning. Like when we're unsure about something, it's like, okay, is this the best it can be? Yeah. And that was a great example where we all were like, no, this isn't. This is the time we need to get a professional, an audio engineer. And I think it's really good because like that's honestly like those are the types of projects I want to be a part of. I'm like, quality is so important. Yeah. And so I'm like also proud of us for being able to like recognize that too. Yeah. Like we didn't get all caught up, and we're all like, we all have that same commonality and the same values of that too. So I feel like that really helps. Yeah. But another thing to think about, like, you know, we haven't been able to make that weekly goal, but we still hit our 1,000 subscribers before it was even like
before the end of
before 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
End of year.
You know, it's like it's like
first of all, can we say, if you know, I don't even know how many people are watching, but like, thank you. I just want to say thank you. It means so much to all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really does.
It really does. Yeah. But yeah, I think you know, we were able to hit our 1K and before the 6 months, and I just like, I don't know. That's impressive. So we're still working everything out. I think season 2, it's like, it's going to be so much different.
So let's talk about that. So we have 2 more episodes that will drop before season 2. Season 2 will launch in the new year, in January. And we're figuring out like what we want to do differently, how to make it better. And I think some things that are top of mind for me of like differentiating season 2 is definitely changing the what we talked about, like the packaging. So we're going to start with really figuring out the topics we want to talk about, even do like thumbnail sketches, title research, and then book accordingly. Yeah. So that's going to be a big process change, because like that is not how we've been working. And then I'm tightening up my interview style in general. So for most of the episodes, I would start with like asking the guests, can you give us a little background into how you got here? And I feel like that was too broad. It felt a little awkward. We've scratched that, and I jump into just asking like what I'm attempting to be just a really strong question, so we can just hop right into a strong interview. And then I think getting like really interesting guests for season 2. I mean, season 1, I think we did really well. I think all of our guests were amazing, and they're so different. But yeah, we're still fleshing out season 2, like if there's a specific theme. We may experiment, we talked about, with more like kind of breaking down like a process, like if we have a DP come in or an editor come in, if we pull up, or if we pull up something specific and we get like a quote line by line breakdown of how that worked, we might explore that in season 2 as well, just to get like, I think our goal, and it has been from the beginning, is just like, deepfeed is not a podcast that's just like kind of all over the place or high level. I've always wanted deepfeed to be like, you watch an episode and you come away with like really actionable advice.
Yeah.
And you come away with like really good tips, like you could take notes, you can apply them to your business. Like that's something, and any like, whether it's an entrepreneur or a creator, or a marketing director who works in-house at a brand, like I think that there's commonalities, and I really want deepfeed to be like a more tactical podcast. And so kind of with that ethos, figuring out what that looks like for season 2 is like, how can we get even more value out of each episode for the viewer and the listeners? So that's what's in my mind. What about for you guys? What would you like to see for season 2?
I mean, I think more breakdowns, like you're saying. I think that's definitely something that, like, because for me, it's like, all right, when I watch podcasts, I want to learn. I want like actionable things, like you're saying. Like, so I think I think breakdowns more like filmmakers, I think, just because also like that's my background. So that's just like where I feel like you can get so many different types of people that are filmmakers. And like when you're a filmmaker, you're a storyteller, and like we're all telling stories. Like any industry we're in, it's like all about stories. And so I think that like filmmakers and storytellers coming into this is like, I don't know, I just think I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, no, I think it could be really cool.
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, like it's all just like branding. It's just about telling our stories.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
So I think for what I'm looking forward to is that, and from, I don't know, on the tech side, I'm not sure. I guess on the tech side, like in our post world and like how we do stuff, I think just like tightening up certain processes, and like this is something I actually wanted to do and I never did, but I wanted to make like a tech guidebook, like PDF, because a lot of like when I freelance for companies, if I'm doing a certain shoot, that they'll send like their tech book and their guidelines and like you know. So I kind of wanted to do that, and I never got around to it. So I'm like, maybe doing that, maybe having a more continue to streamline the process, where it's like almost to the point where it's like if like someone else were to be dropped down, it
could happen because you end up somewhere in a movie and we need to have somebody, you know, one of your juniors or something, you know, step in and they have your guideline.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's smart.
Yeah, so that's more on the tech process side. But again, the process is ever evolving. So but yeah.
What about you?
I think what comes to mind is conversations that we've been having for a while. Like I want the world to see more of your personality and the things you have to say. As somebody that works with you on a day-to-day, watching you working with our clients and the things you have to say and how you guide a lot of our clients, and I feel like your thought process and the way that you see the world deserves to get inside the brain of Winter personally. And I'm not saying that because I'm your partner. I'm just saying that because it's like you're brilliant. You're absolutely brilliant. So I think, and also witty and funny. And I think this season, I know you're just, you know, you're getting more comfortable, and we see it. I see you personally more showing up in the last like 3 episodes, and one was just dropped, Chantel, and then Debbie, and then Tommy. But yeah, I think you have a lot of really great things to say.
Yeah, we have talked about that. I think for anyone who has watched past episodes, you may notice like I'm definitely more quiet, and I just like to ask questions and then give that guest a lot of space, because I think there's a balance, because like some podcasters, I hate when the host kind of goes, hijacks it or like talks and rambles on, and it becomes about the host. And I'm like, I'm always like, can you just shut up? Like, I just want to know. I'm watching it because of also like who you have on. I mean, often podcasts, I love the hosts, and that's definitely part of it. Like, it's like you watch because you fall in love with the host, but I'm like, I want you to stop talking and let the guest speak. Especially, I mean, men do that, right? Like, they overstep a lot. So, like, I just wanted to be sure I'm just giving the guest a lot of space. But I do think that is something I've been working on, of adding thoughts, or like adding, if it feels relevant and it feels natural, like if there is something I can contribute to that conversation, like, so that it is a little more conversational. That is something that I'm gonna try to do more in season 2.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's just your expertise and working in marketing field for a very long time now, and you know, I just think that your perspective is deserved. Like, your opinion is deserved at the table. I just want to hear more.
Yeah, I second that for sure. But I think it's been really exciting to see how, like, you're kind of like the evolution of Winter, you know.
Yeah.
And we've had like a bunch of conversations about that, but like, you know, you add a lot of value, and I think you'll get to the point where you'll know like when to chime in, when to not. You've already started to do that, but you know, having your perspective of also knowing like, well, when I'm watching an interview, I don't want someone to just like chime in with something that has no value. So I feel like with
It's
that context though, that makes you like a more aware interviewer.
Yeah.
Because you're like, well, is this actually adding anything to it? So,
Yeah.
so when you are like chiming in, it's valuable because of that. It's not like just like, oh yeah, me too.
Right.
I think too is I want to do more fun stuff, you know, on our social, like we did yesterday, and stuff we've done in the past. We have to, I know we've had internal conversations we have to do, and I just more of that. I can't wait, actually.
Yeah.
This is fun.
I had so much fun. That like
you had too much fun.
I mean,
I love it.
I love collaborating on content and like scripting it and shooting it and editing. We edited together, which for the first time, like you sitting next to me, co-editing was like, I had never done that before, but it was really cool. And I think it helps speed up the process too. But like, I was telling Asher actually after that, like, I was like, everything you were saying, I agreed with. It was like we were completely aligned in the edit. Like, we saw the same things. And so that was really cool. We just like cranked it out.
Yeah, that was a really exciting process for me because like, I think like when it comes to editing, and I think this is also just kind of like as a cinematographer too, like when you're and this will make sense. I'm just going to ramble for a second, but this will make sense. Like when you're a cinematographer and you work with a director, they come to you with the story and you work within the world and you help create it with them, and like helping you edit, or like being like next to you as you're like, you know, doing it. It's again, like I can add like on like what I'm thinking, and it's like, but it's not just like all on me. You know what I mean? So like I work very well in that like kind of like world where it's like with like other people.
Yeah, that's how we are.
Yeah, but again, it's like because we're collaborators, you know. But yeah, that was a really fun process. I had so much fun being silly. Like more silly. Sorry to interrupt you, but more silliness for next year.
Yeah,
that's a goal.
For sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Let's bring more silly to deep
We
feed.
might just like go out on our own, dump like footage to you.
You should.
Yeah,
you should.
But I think, you know, this is an interesting conversation we're having. I think too, like whoever's when you're starting out on your podcast or want to do something creative, like finding somebody that you really like jive with, like truly, and back to setting those boundaries and the contract of what that would look like and so on. But I think that's like really important to get help and finding, you know?
Yeah, collaborators has been major. But yeah, I think the marketing of the pod is a big priority in season 2, because season 1 it's just been clipping.
Yeah.
And I do feel like what we've been missing and what it takes to really grow a podcast is to actually show the behind the scenes of growing the podcast and the team behind it. And like, if it was like more like vlog stuff and who we are and but also like educational content too, with like stuff like this, but like in short form video. So, cause I think, you know, something I expected was like, oh, well, the interviews are good, we're going to clip it and we're going to go viral, we're going to have like followers. And it's been like specifically, on Instagram and TikTok, it's been much slower than anticipated. And I think it's because people see a lot of podcast clips like often, and we get served stuff even if we're not following. So sometimes because of the algorithm, specifically on Instagram, it's like you feel like, oh, I don't need to follow because I'm getting served your stuff anyway. And I think you have to give people a reason to make that follow.
Yeah.
They can't be like, oh, that was cool, I like that, I'll see when it comes back around. You have to fall in love with what we're the mission of deepfeed, you know, who I am as the host, who you guys are as the crew and the team behind it. Like, people have to fall in love with what we're doing, and that's something, you know, we say at the agency too, is like when we're building a social content plans, it's like you have to come out hard with your why, with that behind the scenes stuff. And so I think it's hard because capacity, right? Like we only are who we are. We don't have other editors and stuff, so that's hard. But I think that will be a priority in season 2, is to like make content like we just posted the promo for this, and just how can we get a little more creative and show our personalities more. And I do think that will help build the community too.
Yeah, no, I love that.
I think too, and a question just came to mind for me is like, where do we plan to take this? What comes up?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me it was like the concept of deepfeed came from seeing a lot of amazing video podcasts on YouTube in the space that were all creator focused, and like similar to this, but like all about just really like YouTuber specific as well. And I wanted to do something on that level with like the production quality and the guests, but have it be a little more broad in the sense we're talking about brand building and like brand building on social specifically, but having that be for entrepreneurs and creators and marketing directors alike. So I want to be a leader in that space because I think there's a huge gap there.
Yeah.
For a YouTube podcast to be like the leader in talking about brand building on social, and there's so much that goes under that. I mean, that's huge, and it seems very niche, but it's actually not, because there's so much to talk about. But I definitely could see deepfeed, you know, being a leader, like just like some podcasts like I admire so much, you know, like John Yushai, Colin and Samir. Like, I think we could be on that level, but in like this world, and that is a goal for deepfeed, and it always has been. And like building deepfeed as a brand, like we've talked about wanting to develop like our own merch, but it's not just merch, it's like actually like apparel and maybe fashion and other things, and do live events potentially, and really grow it as a brand. And so I think our goal right now is to just get the interviews as best as we can. Yeah. Build the community right now, like go all in on that, build the community, and then start expanding and get creative with how we can like make an impact and, you know, educate and provide value in the space.
Yeah. I mean, so well said. I love how like big the dream is. That's so important, because it's like we're gonna make it a reality. Yeah. Like actually like speaking it out loud.
Yeah, and I think too it's important to me because all the top podcasters on YouTube are men. And I think there's a lot of room for other people. And I do love what I love about us too, just who we are. Like, we're very intentional with our guests. We're very intentional, like with wanting to make sure we're not just bringing on straight white guys, you know, on as guests, which is common.
Like we're nonstop and no thought around that.
Yeah, like no intention behind the bookings. And so I think we're bringing that as well to deepfeed, and I think that's very unique, and I think that's an asset that we all share because of who we are.
Yeah, and that's a core, like, foundational part of our mission too. Like, that's something that like we'll bring throughout. Yeah, and I think that's, like you're saying, like other podcasts aren't necessarily doing that.
No.
So.
Well, I think too is what I, you know, well, there's so much, but I think I was thinking in this conversation, I wanted you to talk a little bit about your outreach process. When you reach out to guests, and like you have an incredible like response rate, which is amazing.
Yeah, even pre-launch we did have a great response rate. I mean, I was very intentional about who we pitched, just because I knew we weren't going to be able to like produce 100 episodes this year. But really it is just like finding someone like on social, you know, getting their email and then just sending a cold pitch. And yeah, it's been really cool at how many people, like the mission even pre-launch
Yeah.
and wanted to be a part of it, be a part of the launch, be a part of season 1, even as a brand new channel.
Yeah, it was kind of wild. Or people weren't available at the time, but they're available for next season, and we'll figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's been great. The support has been, and the feedback too, I think, has been really positive. So that's definitely
Yeah.
giving me like inspiration to keep going. So
Yeah.
cool.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I think that's it.
Yeah. I think we've said all we need to say.
Yeah.
If there's any parting tips.
Well, if you stuck around to the very end, thank you.
Yeah,
and again,
thank you.
feel free to email us or
Yeah.
comment, and we do look at everything, and we will get back to you. And yeah, we just really, really appreciate the continued support.
Yeah. Thank you.